Hi, welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Once Upon a Mattress. But I want everyone to know that I paid full price for my ticket and I thought it was worth every penny. I enjoyed the show, I enjoyed the production, I enjoyed the performers, but I do have some critiques for the show itself. But first, let's do a little history about the show. This show began its life as a short play written for a summer resort. It opened Off-Broadway in 1959, starring Carol Burnett, who was then unknown. Shortly thereafter, they took it to Broadway, starring Carol Burnett, where it ran for just over a year. When Carol Burnett decided to leave the show, it only ran for 8 more performances with the new performer playing the lead role, and then it closed. This show was very much riding on the back of its star performer. The show had 2 television recordings, one in black and white, one in color, both starring Carol Burnett. And there was one also done in 2005 with Carol Burnett playing the Queen and Tracy Ullman playing Princess Winifred, the lead role. The show was revived on Broadway in 1996, starring Sarah Jessica Parker, and ran for about 5 months. City Center Encores chose to do this as part of their season earlier in the year, and after it played the week or two that it does at City Center, it then closed, and they decided to reopen it on Broadway. Okay. That's the history. Now I want to talk about the play. Was I bored? Was I confused? I was mostly confused why I was not having as good a time as everyone else in the theater. People were really laughing. There was this one lady sitting 3 rows behind me who was cackling like a demon. And the audience was really loving this silly, silly show. I enjoyed it, but I did not find it as funny as many other people did. This is a show where you don't expect it to make sense. And that only works for me if it's constantly funny. It just has to be laugh, laugh, laugh. I find the whole conceit of the play a little confusing because right at the beginning of the show, the Queen is interviewing 3 princesses who want to marry Prince Dauntless. And she just asks them questions that they couldn't possibly know the answers for. And she gets rid of all of the potential princesses this way. So later on, when Princess Winifred shows up, and the Queen says she's going to put her to the test. My question is, why don't you just do the same thing you did with the other princesses and just ask them ridiculous questions? Princess Winifred won't know the answers and you get rid of her. But instead, the Queen decides to do a sensitivity test involving the mattresses and a pea, which doesn't really make sense. But this is throughout the show. Things just don't make sense. A lot of things are done just for comedic sake. For example, Prince Dauntless, for some reason, doesn't know how to walk upstairs. I guess he's scared by them. Doesn't really explain. It gets a laugh. This show was written late 50s, early 60s, and the sensibility is very late 50s, early 60s. They brought in Amy Sherman Palladino, who I think is great. She wrote Marvelous Miss Maisel and other things. They brought her in to rework the book. She has the sensibility of that period. So I feel like she was a good choice to rewrite this book. That being said, I feel like the show just suffers under the fact that it is a really simple story that is being stretched out to be much longer than it really needs to be. This really feels like it should be a 50-minute children's show. And this show is very appropriate for kids. This is the show to bring your kids to. It's loud, it's bright, it's fast, it's funny, it's broad. This is great for kids, except that it's 2.5 hours. In fact, there was a kid behind me munching on their snacks for most of the show. There were changes in 4 actors when the show moved to Broadway. Queen Agravain was played by Anna Gasteyer on Broadway. The Jester was played by Daniel Breaker. Sir Harry was played by Will Chase, and the Wizard was played by Brooks Ashmanskas. Those were played by Harriet Harris, Cheyenne Jackson, and J. Harrison Gee, and one other person whose name I'm forgetting. Sorry, it's right here. Yeah. Was I bored? I was a little bored with the show because it feels like a story that has been stretched out. Even the jokes keep reoccurring throughout the play and they lose steam as they go. For example, when Princess Winifred arrives, she swam the moat, which is funny, but then people keep saying she swam the moat, she swam the moat, she swam, and it just becomes less and less funny because, yeah, she swam the moat, we got it. Also, Will Chase has this bit where he loves to show off his spurs every time he enters. But after he's done it the 5th or the 6th time, it's just not that funny anymore. Another joke that gets old is that the king is mute, and so he has to pantomime everything. And at first, this is funny and cute, but then as the show goes on and he's having to constantly pantomime things, it just becomes tedious and it's not funny anymore. All of the characters in this show are extremely crazy characters, which is necessary for a show that needs to move on laughs. But I found that Lady Larkin seemed very normal and serious compared to the rest of these crazy people. And I don't know if this is more the writing or the actress who played her. I saw Nikki Renee Daniels, who also played it at the Encore's production at City Center. Her singing voice is amazing. She's a beautiful ingenue and she's entertaining, but she wasn't a weirdo like the rest of the cast is. In the revival in 1996, this role was played by Jane Krakowski, and I would be really curious to see what Jane Krakowski did with the role because, as we know, she's a nut. This also meant that when Lady Larkin has this idea that she's going to dress as a man and run away because she's pregnant and she doesn't even want to know, I didn't really believe this whole idea because I was like, she's too sensible to do this. And this is also a plot point that she says she's going to do it, but then she gets caught immediately. And then she goes, oh, I don't know why I wanted to do it. That was a stupid idea. So that plot point just went nowhere. The music in the show, none of the songs stuck with me except for I'm Shy, which is really the standout song sung by Princess Winifred. A lot of the songs in the show are well crafted. The lyrics are clever, but none of the songs really stick with me and make me go, oh, wow, what a great song. That's a song I want to sing, or that's a song I want to use for an audition, or I want to hear that song again. They're nice, light 1950s musical theater songs, but they just really don't stick with you. So one of the reasons I think I'm being so critical about the show is because I'm seeing it on Broadway as opposed to seeing it at City Center as part of the Encore series. The mission statement of City Center Encores is to take older musicals and give them a new life and bring them to audiences, usually just for a week or two of performances. And often they're done with books in hands. Chicago, the musical, started out this way, which is why when you go see that show on Broadway, the orchestra is on stage because that's the signature of City Center Encores, is they really want to show the music off. And this production of Once Upon a Mattress really does show off the music. It sounds great. Understanding that this show was produced to fulfill the mission purpose of bringing a lesser known show to audiences, I feel like it was completely successful. This was a very good production of a show that I've not really seen very much of. I got to see its strengths and its weaknesses. We had a stellar cast of Broadway greats performing this. So I was willing to buy my ticket and I was happy to see the show and I enjoyed it for what it was. This is a show that really gives good comedic actors a chance to show their comedic chops. So Sutton Foster was absolutely up to the task. She really shines when she gets to be quirky, and this show allowed her to do this. Now, of course, there were moments where I could just hear Carol Burnett and her brassy voice in my head, but for the most part, Sutton really made this her own and was a delight to watch. Who I was really surprised was Michael Urie. He doesn't have the greatest singing voice, but it doesn't matter because he's not playing the handsome leading man who has to sing big baritone solos. He is a goofy, childish, henpecked, shy boy who can't stand up to his mother. And I thought he played this wonderfully. Start to finish, I just thought every moment he was really funny. In fact, the whole cast in the show was really great. Anna Gasteyer was great, Will Chase was great, but I'm such a huge fan of Harriet Harris and Cheyenne Jackson that I was like, oh, I wish I'd seen them as well because I think they're such brilliant comedians. I love Daniel Breaker. I thought he did a tremendous job, and Brooks Ashmanskas was also fantastic as the wizard. Again, this show was rewritten by Amy Sherman Palladino, and certain songs I think felt a little bit like they didn't belong. One was Normandy, which evidently was originally sung by the minstrel, a character that they cut, but they gave it to the young lovers who were not that young, but they were singing about where they were going to go honeymoon in Normandy. Things like this just don't make sense. They become kind of boring. That was one song where I went, why are they singing about Normandy? Why does this have to do with anything? And I felt that a lot. Didn't really feel like those songs were moving the plot forward because there really isn't a lot of plot in this show. But singing is great, performances are great. So that's why you go see Once Upon a Mattress. You get to see comic actors chew the scenery. I wish I had laughed more during the show, but I don't know, maybe it was the woman shrieking behind me or the kid eating candy or the guy in front of me who kept leaning forward and blocking my view. Maybe those things were irritating me, so I couldn't relax and laugh as much as the rest of the audience was. But definitely worth the price of admission to see these great comic actors, especially Michael Urie and Sutton Foster in these roles. It's a silly, silly show, and if that's what you're into, then go see Once Upon a Mattress playing on Broadway for a limited run. And I'm pretty sure this is not going to be extended, so you better get it before the clock runs out.
Wanna drift away, I wanna stay inside the play. Keep me engaged, keep me amused
with what's in front of me, 'cause I don't wanna be
1, 2.
Ah.